Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Hama and these are the headlines. The US has imposed sanctions on senior officials in the International Criminal Court, including Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. In a press conference, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused the court of illegitimate attempts to subject Americans to its jurisdiction. The Hague-based court is currently investigating whether US forces committed war crimes in Afghanistan. Afghan government negotiators are set to fly to Doha on Thursday to prepare for long-delayed peace talks with the Taliban. This comes as the Kabul administration resumed releasing the remaining Taliban prisoners. In a statement, a spokesman for the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation confirmed the development. China says Indian statements have proven it was New Delhi that took provocative actions first to cause the recent border escalation. In a news briefing, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said Indian troops illegally trespassed the line of actual control. She urged India to do its part in safeguarding regional peace and stability. France's President Emmanuel Macron says ISIS militants and foreign interference are the main challenges facing Iraq. Speaking alongside Iraq's President Barham Saleh in Baghdad, Macron said France will continue to support Iraq. Saleh said Iraq should not become a battleground for proxy conflicts between other states. In India, over 78,000 people have tested positive overnight, taking the case load to over 3.7 million, with more than 66,000 deaths. Brazil has registered more than 1,200 deaths and over 42,000 cases in a day, with infection tally approaching 4 million. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 18 people have lost their lives to the virus overnight, raising the death toll to 6,318. Globally, the virus has claimed over 857,000 lives, while infecting over 25.7 million. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. The US has imposed sanctions on senior officials in the International Criminal Court, including Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. In a press conference, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused the court of illegitimate attempts to subject Americans to its jurisdiction. The Hague-based court is currently investigating whether US forces committed war crimes in Afghanistan. The US has criticized the court since its foundation and is one of a dozen states which have not signed up. In June, US President Donald Trump issued an executive order allowing the US to block the assets of ICC employees. He has repeatedly attacked the body and questioned its independence. Pompeo said these sanctions were the next step following on from that order. Afghan government negotiators are set to fly to Doha on Thursday to prepare for long-delayed peace talks with the Taliban. This comes as the Kabul administration resumed releasing the remaining Taliban prisoners. In a statement, a spokesman for the chairman of the Afghan Council for Reconciliation confirmed the development.
It was not immediately clear when the talks will start, but both sides have expressed a willingness to kickstart them soon. The prisoner exchange has been a major sticking point ahead of intra-Afghan negotiations. The Taliban had demanded a final group of prisoners be released before they would participate in the talks as part of the Doha peace deal. Kabul had balked at the release of the final 400 Taliban inmates, who President Ashraf Ghani said were hardcore inmates. Today, presidential spokesman Sadiq Siddiqui said the government has released another batch of the remaining Taliban prisoners. He said the work is still underway to move the prisoner exchange process forward. Siddiqui added that the prisoner swap is a two-way process and the government is closely assessing each step. The Taliban had pledged to free 1,000 government prisoners in exchange for 5,000 fighters to start peace talks that would lead to the withdrawal of foreign troops from Afghanistan and end almost 2 decades of war.
China has firmly rejected a U.S. Defense Department report that says Beijing is set to at least double its warheads over the next decade. This comes as a Pentagon report claimed Beijing is close to achieving the triad, the ability to launch nuclear strikes by land, air and sea. In a news briefing, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said the report is full of bias and ignores the facts. The spokesperson said document makes groundless comments to deliberately distort China's strategic intentions.
This report by the U.S. Department of Defense, just like other similar reports in the past, ignores the fact and is full of bias. It makes groundless comments on China's national defense and deliberately distorts China's strategic intentions.
China says Indian statements have proven it was New Delhi that took provocative actions first to cause the recent border escalation. In a news briefing, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said Indian troops illegally trespassed the line of actual control. She urged India to do its part in safeguarding regional peace and stability. Chunying said India unilaterally changed the status quo by force, undermining peace and stability in the border area. She said the responsibility rests entirely with India, as Beijing has exercised great restraint to prevent this situation from escalating. The two countries have been in a standoff over the Ladakh border dispute that erupted in late April. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in fighting that broke out between the two sides in Ladakh's Galwan Valley. In a statement, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for a peaceful resolution of the border dispute. Niger, the UN Security Council's president for September, has dismissed the U.S. bid to trigger the return of UN sanctions on Iran. Niger ruled out any move to put forward the snapback draft resolution, citing the lack of consensus in the 15-member body. The UNSC president said the US or any other member state of the Security Council can submit such a proposal if they want. Last month, Indonesia UNSC president for August said it could not act upon the US measure due to the opposition of the 13 council members. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted Washington will veto any resolution against the snapback measure.
Iran hopes all parties concerned could strongly support fulfillment of the deal and object to the series of illegal bullying actions of the US together.
Earlier last month, Washington formally notified the UN of its demand to restore sanctions on Tehran. Now moving on, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and senior White House advisor Jared Kushner have stressed the need to resume Palestine-Israel talks. Saudi state media said both the sides also discussed the regional peace at a meeting in Riyadh. Kushner is on a pan-regional visit after the diplomatic normalization agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, Washington, Abu Dhabi and Tel Aviv have urged the Palestinians to re-engage in peace talks. Earlier, Abu Dhabi reiterated its commitment to a sovereign Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. France's President Emmanuel Macron says ISIS militants and foreign interference are the main challenges facing Iraq. Speaking alongside Iraq's President Barham Salih in Baghdad, Macron said France will continue to support Iraq. He said Iraqi officials should continue to share the vision of restoring Baghdad's sovereignty. Macron added that this is crucial not only for Iraq but for the entire region as well. Salih said Iraq must not become a battleground for proxy conflicts between other states. He said the country faces the challenge of balancing the interests of the two key allies, the US and Iran. Macron's visit is the first by a Western leader to Iraq since Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi took office in May. Turkey says it has seized huge ammunition belonging to the Kurdistan Workers Party in an operation in southeastern Hakkari province. In a statement, officials of the Hakkari governorate said security forces have seized 2,600 rounds of anti-aircraft munition. The official said forces carried out Operation Yildirim Tuchelo in Samdinli district of the province. Turkey has launched a series of security operations to neutralize terrorists believed to be hiding out in the country's east and southeast. Turkey holds the PKK responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in its 30-year conflict. Turkey says the U.S. decision to lift a 33-year-old arms embargo from the Greek Cypriots has poisoned hopes for peace in the eastern Mediterranean. In a statement, Turkey's foreign ministry said this move is incompatible with the spirit of the alliance. It said the decision should be reviewed, otherwise Ankara will take the necessary reciprocal steps. The statement said the move disregards the equality and the balance on the island. Turkey has also rejected Austrian claims alleging Ankara of espionage as baseless. The ministry said Austria's comments show Vienna was unable to escape populist rhetoric and anti-Turkey obsession. Turkey says for a sustainable and permanent ceasefire in Libya, the northern city of Sarath and central region of Jufra will have to be demilitarized. Turkish Defense Foreign Minister Sedat Onal gave this statement following his visit to Russia. Onal said Turkey has declared its support for demilitarization during meetings with the Russian officials. He said Turkey has also stressed the importance of starting the UN-backed intra-Libyan political dialogue and implementing the Berlin Conference resolutions. Onal also said Russia and Turkey have decided to maintain contact towards political resolution in Libya. The European Union has welcomed the Libyan ceasefire, saying Brussels continues to support a political resolution to the conflict. This comes as the EU's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, held talks with Libya's internationally recognized Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj in Tripoli. Borrell said the two sides discussed ways forward to advance the political process, to return to the UN-backed military committee talks, and to lift oil blockade. The EU's diplomat said Brussels strongly supports mediation efforts and de-escalation measures, including an arms embargo. Meanwhile, Italian Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio also met with both Libyan parties. The Foreign Minister called Libya a crucial crossroads for building a new model of development in the Mediterranean. Russia has condemned the US and EU meddling in Belarus's internal affairs, calling their statements destructive. This comes as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Belarusian counterpart Vladimir Mackay met in Moscow to discuss the ongoing crisis in Minsk. Lavrov said Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin will visit Belarus tomorrow for talks. Lavrov said Belarus is Russia's ally and its president is facing the biggest political crisis of his 26 years in power. Talking to reporters, Mikhail said Russia's stance on the political crisis in Belarus is helping prevent outside meddling in the country. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In India, 1,045 people have died while over 78,000 people have tested positive in the last 24 hours. Brazil has also registered more than 1,200 deaths and over 42,000 cases in a day. Globally, the virus has claimed over 857,000 lives while infecting over 25.7 million. More in this report.
India continues to be the most festering COVID-19 hotspot of the world, with a daily tally of over 66,000 while caseload exceeding 3.7 million. In the Americas, the US has announced it will not join the World Health Organization-led global push for a coronavirus vaccine. Meanwhile, in Mexico, the cases tally tops 600,000 as the country eases restrictions.
The epidemic is not over. In the area you live in, you'll still be able to hear stories and experiences about new cases, but that does not mean the epidemic in general does not exist, and we'll need to start reopening public life as the risk starts decreasing.
In Asia, mainland China has reported 8 new imported cases, down from 10 a day earlier. South Korea has reported 267 new infections as cases remain under 300 for the 4th day straight. Meanwhile, Australia has been pushed into recession, bringing 3 decades of economic growth to a halt. The government is considering to ease restrictions in the Victoria state after a hint of a downward trend in new cases.
First things first, there are 19,224 confirmed aggregate cases of coronavirus across the state since, of course, the beginning of the pandemic. That's 90 new cases since our update yesterday. Sadly, there have been now 576 Victorians who have lost their life because of this global pandemic. That's an increase of 6 since yesterday's report.
For Europe, the WHO says the region can live without a vaccine by managing outbreaks with localized lockdowns. Millions of students around Europe return to school with mandatory masks and social distancing.
Well, in Pakistan, 18 people have lost their lives to the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the death toll has reached 6,318 so far. The ministry said 441 more tested positive for the disease overnight. It said the number of active cases in the country is at 8,813. More than 280,000 patients out of some 296,000 have recovered, which accounts for a 95% recovery rate in the country. Sindh remains the most affected province with nearly 129,000 infections, while Punjab has reported close to 97,000 cases so far. Pakistan has condemned a decision by French magazine Charlie Hebdo to republish blasphemous caricatures of Prophet Mohammed, peace be upon him. In a tweet, the Foreign Office says such a move to offend billions of Muslims cannot be justified under the pretext of freedom of expression. It added, these actions undermine global aspirations for peaceful coexistence and interfaith harmony. In Japan, Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshida Suga has formally announced his candidacy as leader of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. The announced candidacy puts him in line to succeed Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Yoshida Suga has worked as Prime Minister Abe's right-hand man for 8 years and has now emerged as a frontrunner in the upcoming September 14th elections. Suga will be competing against former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba and ex-Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida for the post. The process to elect the LDP's president will begin on September 8th with an official vote on the 14th of September. The new leader will have to gain majority support in the parliament to be elected as the Prime Minister by September the 16th. Earlier, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stepped down because of health concerns. In the U.S. state of California, fresh protests have broken out in Los Angeles after police shot dead another African-American, Dijon Kizé. Earlier last week, Pasadena police in the county fatally shot a black man, Anthony McLean, triggering BLM demonstrations.
The county sheriff department said Kinsey ran away when deputy officers tried to stop him from violating unspecified vehicle codes. The sheriff said when reached by the officers, Kinsey punched a cop and dropped a pistol on the ground. However, eyewitnesses claim Kinsey did not have a gun and was not a threat. The deputy shot the man over 20 times, which Kinsey's aunt said was due to her nephew's appearance as a black man. This comes as President Donald Trump reaches Kenosha in Wisconsin and backs police officers, saying they sometimes have to choke people.
We have to condemn the dangerous anti-police rhetoric. It's getting more and more. It's very unfair. You have some bad apples, we all know that, and those will be taken care of through the system, and nobody's going to be easy on them either. And you have people that choke.
After Portland, Kenosha has also become protests hotspot since police shot African-American Jacob Blake multiple times in the back, leaving him paralyzed.
Turkey says two Venezuelan opposition leaders are in talks with the government of President Nicolas Maduro to participate in the upcoming legislative elections. After the talks with Maduro and opposition leaders, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu at a news conference said both the sides have agreed on the presence of international observers in the vote scheduled for December. Çavuşoğlu said Ankara is happy the two sides are close to a deal and that foreign-funded individuals will not take part in the elections. President Nicolas Maduro has also pardoned over 100 opposition politicians ahead of the elections and asked the people to trust his decision.
Pero entiéndanme.
Understand me. I ask for your understanding. I know what I am doing. I ask for your support. I ask for the understanding of all of Venezuela. I ask for your understanding and ask for your support on this path to peace. I know what I am doing.
Apoyo para este camino.
Well, 21 people, including women and children, have died in rain-related incidents in Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Authorities say at least 31 others were injured during the last 24 hours in the districts of Sarath, Mansehra and Shangla. Current monsoon season has claimed 176 lives across the country so far. The National Disaster Management Authority says 101 others have been injured, while over 200 houses have been damaged. Facebook and Twitter have taken down accounts allegedly linked to Russian state actors for committing coordinated inauthentic behavior. The company says 13 accounts and 2 pages tied to Russia's Internet Research Agency have been removed from the social network. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation says it provided the information to Facebook against threats to security and democracy. Facebook said a Russian influence operation posed an independent news outlet to target left-wing voters in the US and the UK. It said the outlet recruited freelance journalists to write about the US and Britain's domestic politics. Meanwhile, Twitter says it has also suspended 5 related accounts attributed to Russian actors for platform manipulation. The life-size and nourishing our future sculpture, entirely made of butter, is put on display in New York City. The sculpture was presented via Facebook Live due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The buttery artwork has 2 timely panels. One side shows parents serving their kids food with butter, while the other shows the laptop in place for distance learning in the era of global pandemic. The sculpture is part of the annual New York State Fair, which is organized by the American Dairy Association Northeast. Much of the rest of the fair has been sidelined as a result of the pandemic. An artist in Nigeria has merged his love for pasta and art in a completely unique manner. He has used 25,000 strands of spaghetti only to create non-edible sculptures. More about mouth-watering art in this report.
Pasta is a favorite food for many people around the world, but sculptor Tomiwa Oyatomi goes a step ahead and creates world landmarks with spaghetti. His first of 5 pasta-inspired sculptures was a replica of the Eiffel Tower. The artist says each piece takes 2 to 3 days to make, depending on size and complexity.
I just want to show the world that these places are great architectural pieces because it's beautiful and they are made with, great techniques because they are kind of very different from every other thing that we know. And the second thing is just want to relate to people about these places where you can visit when you get to this exact country.
As Africa is suffering from rising inflation and poverty, Oyatomi has to face criticism for his use of food for art.
People thinking my kind of art is waste is maybe they don't really have the knowledge of what I'm trying to show to people. What I'm just trying to show to people is just an expression that even if you are fragile, you can still stand when you are being close together. When you can hold yourself together, then you can still stand.
Oyatomi also teaches virtual painting and drawing classes for children alongside his pasta pastime.
It's the time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. The International Air Transport Association says passenger demand has slightly improved in July compared to the last month. In a press release, the association said the drop in the demand was 96.8% in June, while reducing to 91.9% in July. It said a reopening aviation market in the Schengen area contributed to the international demand in Europe. It said domestic traffic fell 57.5% in July, less than 68% decline in June. IATA said lifting and reimposing quarantine measures do not give customers confidence to make travel plans, nor the airlines to make schedules. Latest data from the Australian government shows the country has fallen into its deepest economic slump on record in second quarter. The statistics show the country's $1.47 trillion economy shrunk by 7% in the second quarter, continuing the first quarter decline. Canberra has reported its first downturn since 1991 and joins the United States, Japan, the UK and Germany. Addressing the media, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said this crisis is like no other and attributed the downturn to COVID-19 pandemic. He said the government will keep its policy of maintaining fiscal stimulus and support its people as the country comes out of the crisis. Frydenberg said Victoria's lockdowns will weigh heavily on September quarter GDP. The June quarter decline is the largest in quarterly gross domestic product since the records began in 1959. Pakistan Stock Exchange has become the best Asian stock market and the fourth best performing markets across the world in 2020. The development was confirmed in a report of a New York-based global markets research firm. The report said the benchmark KSE 100 index has given a return on investment of 38.5% in dollar terms as foreign capital has been flowing into the market. Previously, the Pakistan Stock Exchange was named Asia's best performer in 2016. Local economists viewed this development as a signal that the country's otherwise contracting economy is recovering. PSX Chief Farooq Khan said Pakistan has coped better with COVID-19 and its economy is rebounding strongly than other countries. European stocks are trading higher over the back of a strong session on Wall Street despite troubling economic indicators in the region. Investors also await Eurozone's central bank's updated inflation estimates for September. European stock 600 is trading around 1.5% higher. Frankfurt's DAX is trading close to 2% higher. London's FTSE 100 has gained 1.5%. CAC 40 in Paris has so far climbed a little over 1%. Earlier Asian markets traded mixed with mainland Chinese stocks trading marginally lower. With a strong start to September, the Wall Street stocks have climbed as traders take profits out of Apple and Tesla. The shares of Nvidia Corporation gained over 5.6% after several brokerages hiked their price targets. The market surged following the collaboration of powerful gaming chips with Macron Technology and Samsung Electronics Company. The indices of S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average traded nearly 1% higher. Nasdaq Composite also traded 0.25% higher. Meanwhile, oil prices surged as futures extended gains after a bigger than expected draw in U.S. crude stockpiles. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. Further updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.